Okay, so let me ask you something. What if an entire industry, one that pretty much runs our digital world, lost $1 trillion of value, like almost overnight? Well, that's not some sci-fi plot. It's what people are calling the SaaSpocalypse, a massive shockwave sent through the software world, all thanks to a new kind of AI. And in this explainer, we're going to get into exactly how it all went down.
So let's put a number on this thing. Here it is, $1 trillion. That's trillion with a T. That is the estimated value that just vanished from the software as a service market. And look, this wasn't some slow, gradual decline. This was like the market just walked right off a cliff.
And that leads us to the big question, right? How on earth did AI do this? I mean, what changed so fast that the very foundation of a multi-trillion-dollar industry just started to crumble? Let's dig in.
First thing you have to understand is this wasn't your typical stock market dip. No, analysts are calling this a structural repricing. And what that really means is that investors weren't just spooked by some bad quarterly earnings. They were starting to ask a much scarier question. Is the entire business model that built the modern software industry now obsolete?
So what caused this huge rethink? Well, it was a rapid-fire series of AI product launches. But these weren't just another flavor of chatbot. No, the market finally realized we are entering the age of autonomous agents. These are AIs that you can give a goal to, and they can just go do it. They can execute complicated tasks on their own, doing the exact kind of knowledge work that millions of software licenses were sold to help humans do.
The speed of this whole collapse was just breathtaking. So let's actually perform an autopsy here. Let's look at the anatomy of this crisis. We're going to walk through the specific events that took this vague anxiety about AI and turned it into a full-blown market panic in less than 3 months.
It all kicks off in January 2026. First, Anthropic drops Claude Cowork, an AI that can use your computer just like a person. Just a couple weeks later, they open source a bunch of plugins that target specific jobs. You can just feel the anxiety building, right? Then in February, OpenAI makes a huge hire, signaling they're all in on this too. And then, the COBOL earthquake hits. We'll get to that in a sec. And finally, OpenAI delivers the knockout punch in March with GPT 5.4, an AI that can reason, code, and operate a computer all in one package. The pressure was just relentless. Now, if you really want to understand just how panicked the market was, you have to look at what's now being called the COBOL earthquake. This one single event tells you everything you need to know about the new reality.
This quote from DevOps.com just says it all. I mean, think about that for a second. A blog post, a single blog post from an AI company talking about how its model could automate work on a 60-year-old programming language. And that alone triggers a multi-billion-dollar meltdown at one of the biggest tech companies on the planet. The ground beneath everyone's feet had just completely shifted.
And the final tally is just insane. Over $31 billion of IBM's market cap gone in a single day. It was their worst day on the market since the dot-com bubble burst. And that was the moment everyone realized, oh, no one is safe.
Okay, so this is really the key to the whole thing. We need to understand why this is so different from all the AI hype we've seen before. What actually changed? Well, it's a fundamental shift in what the AI can actually do. It's the jump from a helpful co-pilot to a digital worker.
This slide nails the difference. Over on the left, you have the co-pilot era. Think of this AI as a really smart intern. It can help you draft an email, it can suggest some code, but you, the human, are still the one in the driver's seat. You're still clicking, you're still making decisions, and you still need that expensive software license. Now on the right, that's the new agentic era. You can give this AI a high-level goal, and it will figure out the steps and execute them across multiple apps all by itself. Suddenly, the human operator is no longer essential. And that? Well, that changes literally everything.
So this massive tech shift created a new, absolutely brutal set of rules for the software industry. It starts with this terrifying new idea called revenue deletion, and it leads right to the death of the per-seat subscription model, the very model that built the entire SaaS empire. And the damage was everywhere, and it was immediate. Just look at this casualty list. We are talking about the biggest names in the game. Salesforce, down 38% because guess what? AI agents can now do a lot of CRM work. Adobe, down over 30% with its creative tools under threat. ServiceNow, Intuit, IBM. The market suddenly realized that any company whose business model was based on a human sitting in a chair using their software was now in serious trouble.
So why did this business model that seemed so invincible just shatter? Well, it boils down to 3 things. First, your predictable revenue goes out the window when one single AI agent can do the work of, say, 15 human employees.
Second, you know how hard it is to switch software? All that hassle? Well, that disappears because an agent can just migrate all your data and workflows for you. And third, that beautiful, slick user interface that companies spent millions on? Totally irrelevant. Agents don't need pretty buttons. They talk directly to the software's code through something called an API.
So, if the old model's broken, what comes next? The frontrunner is this idea called outcome as a service. Basically, instead of paying for access to a tool, companies will pay for a result. You don't buy a Salesforce license anymore. You pay a small fee for every sales lead an AI successfully closes for you. The whole way we measure value is shifting from the tool itself to the completed task.
Now, to be fair, there is a strong counter-argument here. The contrarian case says, look, huge enterprise software isn't just a simple tool. It's the company's digital DNA. It holds decades of business logic and institutional memory. You can't just rip it out. In this version of the future, these big systems will probably stick around, but they'll become sort of the dumb database that the smart AI agents talk to in the background. It's a way to survive, for sure, but it's not exactly a recipe for growth.
So if we zoom out from the stock market, this whole shift kicks off what people are calling the agentic era. And its impact goes way beyond just software companies. It touches everything from the job market to cybersecurity.
This new era just unleashes these huge, society-wide questions. I mean, what happens to the workforce when entire corporate roles can be done by an AI? How in the world do you secure a company that has thousands of these autonomous agents running around inside its network? And maybe the most wild idea of all, what happens when we stop buying software off the shelf and instead we just describe what we want and an AI builds a custom tool for us right there on the spot? So, for any leaders, builders, or investors watching this, the takeaways are pretty clear, and they're urgent. 1. You need to audit all your software spending, like yesterday, and figure out what's redundant. 2. If you're building software, you have to rethink per-seat pricing. 3. Start building for AI agents as your main user, not just humans. 4. You have to invest heavily in security and what's being called agent governance. And 5. Start thinking about how your human workers are going to be augmented by these AIs, not just replaced by them. And all of this really leaves us with one final massive question. For decades, the value of software has been tied to the human using it. But when the main user of your product is no longer a person, but an autonomous AI agent, what is that software really worth anymore? That right there is the trillion-dollar question that's going to define this new agentic era.